Hello, my name is David Lightfoot, and this presentation is for the virtual Keycon that will be taking place in May. The original Keycon being canceled and all due to coronavirus. And the reason why I'm decided to read my presentation is because due to my cerebral palsy, I kind of have a few issues with reciting, stumbling, and all that. So this presentation is on working for the cause with your writing. And I am here to speak about writing fiction for the purpose of fundraising. I certainly hope that you'll find this presentation inspirational. Okay, so this presentation is for mainly, well, not only just authors, but also for people who work in a nonprofit organization. So what cause are you trying to promote in your work, or what cause would you be interested in promoting? Especially if you're a novelist who hasn't dipped his or her toes into the fundraising and would like to. Would that be breast cancer or diabetes awareness? How about stopping domestic and family violence? Or how about empowering women and girls? Pretty inspirational there. World peace? Or are you just trying to make your community or the world a better place for people and other families? Now, here's another question, especially for those working in the nonprofit sector that I mentioned earlier. Have you ever thought about writing a novel for fundraising purposes? Like maybe you have a novel themed around a cause for a fundraising project? That's what I mean. I have. Oh, I definitely have. And I'm here to tell you about that, along with the sports celebrity whom I admire and who inspired me as a writer myself to take this plunge and go for it. Well, first, let me tell you about the writing project. So, since around 2008, I've noticed that fantasy, action, romance, book sagas for teens and young adult readers are and continue to be a huge literary trend. You have Twilight, The Hunger Games, The Mortal Instruments, and Divergent. All these books are major bestsellers, and the list keeps growing. Soon, you see other wannabe Stephanie Meyers and Cassandra Clares coming up with their own story serials where a teenage girl and supernatural teenage boy fall in love and team up to save mankind. Again, fall in love, sorry for repeating myself, but mostly do both. They tell these stories in the form of 4 or 5 books, and these books are lining the shelves of teen fiction sections in bookstores such as Chapters and Kohl's, maybe Barnes & Noble, McNally Robinson, and maybe they can even be seen on Amazon. And also in the entertainment realm, superhero movies and television shows are super hot, and continue to be even into 2020. And this led me to decide that the cartoon and comic book heroes needed their own saga, and in this retrospect, I created a new martial arts team called the Superhuman Martial Brothers. This saga is called The Glory of Love. And in this saga, the superhuman Marshall brothers live in a metropolis that is bound on a tropical island, I should say. It's called Crystal Isle. Each brother has a special weapon or special power that is fundamental for him to help fight crime against an organized crime family called the Kensingtons. However, like most superheroes, each brother has his own weakness, and one of the brothers, Nightvisor, has the weakness of loneliness. He has to have the love of a special, beautiful girl, a girl who would deeply love him as he would love her, to give him the strength to help fight. Without that love, he is weak, and he cannot fight as a result. Who wouldn't want to read a book like that? However, over time, the books will be less focused on Nightvisor and more focused on another brother. As Well, simply because these brothers are actually inspired by Nightbiter to give love a chance. By the end of the series, my goal is to have all the brothers married and with girlfriends and wives all their own. Now, to the one who inspired me to go the philanthropic route. And this is a very special person, even though I have never met him, and I hope to meet him one day. His name, ladies and gentlemen, is Norman Julius Esiason, better known as Boomer Esiason. He is actually an ex-quarterback for the National Football League who spent much of his football career with the Cincinnati Bengals and the New York Jets, and he is a celebrated, radio and television personality in the field of sports. He does a morning show on WFAN in New York City, a station I don't get my radio, but I do get CBS on my Shaw cable, where he does television currently. And trust me, Boomer Esiason is the only reason why I watch the NFL today, from September to January. I admire the way he gets to the heart of the matter on issues on and off the sports fields, and the way he's so professional and straightforward. And besides, he looks like a movie star. I remember watching him on television without his football helmet, the blonde hair and all, the Romanesque facial features, and the body that at the age of 40 I would kill for. And I was in my late teens going into my early 20s then, while he was in his 30s and 40s, and I'm thinking, oh my god, I would kill to have his looks. All joking like that aside, another reason why I admire him so much is the way Boomer Esiason is with his family and what he has done for children and charities. It all started when I was in high school and I was in the library and I read an advertisement article about him in Sports Illustrated where he was named Walter Payton's Man of the Year. And this happened following the 1995 NFL season. Boomer has a son named Gunnar. And when the boy was only 2 years old, he was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis. This is a genetic disease which causes mucus to form and other weird stuff to form and show up in your lungs, pancreas, intestines, kidneys, and affects the child's breathing and digestion. This is a disease that affects more than 30,000 people in the United States currently and more than 70,000 people worldwide. Today, people living with cystic fibrosis can expect to live up to the age of 40. That is when they self-isolate from this coronavirus thing. As opposed to just 4 years old 50 years ago, but there's still no cure. Reading about how this diagnosis devastated Boomer as a father just caused my heart to break. However, the love he had for his son drove him to start the Boomer Esiason Foundation for Cystic Fibrosis Research. From the moment I learned about this, I developed a deep admiration for him. I really did admire the close relationship that he had with Gunnar when he was growing up. Not joking here. I was constantly comparing the two of them to Spike and Tyke from the Tom and Jerry cartoons. Another ad article I read in the same magazine about a couple of years later talked more about Gunnar's diagnosis, which led to the creation of the foundation and how Boomer would do anything to raise money for research and awareness. From writing a children's book to selling barbecue sauce, quote unquote. Writing a children's book. Well, in the first place, I wanted to be a writer for about 5 years then, and anyone who knew me then, and now, anyone who knew me then and know me now, knew that I had superb writing and storytelling talent. Those 4 words inspired me to choose this very foundation to target my talents to. And I decided that Boomer Esiason was the very man I wanted to work for. even though he lived in the United States and I lived in Canada. And yes, he did write a children's book, a non-fiction book that chronicled a year in his childhood. It's called A Boy Named Boomer. And he also expanded his writing career by producing a football-themed novel for adults about corruption in professional football itself. It's called Toss, which I believe was also a fundraising project. And in the event that I do meet him, I'll have to ask him about that. Both these books are on print now, but you can still find them on major book-selling sites such as Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Later, Boomer wrote a column for the National Football League website, which I followed religiously. Some columns I would read like multiple times. Combine that with his media experience, and I became obsessed with him without becoming a celebrity stalker. Yet, what has Boomer Esiason written for teenage readers, some of whom also have cystic fibrosis? I'll tell you the answer. Nothing. Nothing, nothing, and more nothing. That's why I decided to help this foundation out. But there was one problem. At the time I developed this inspiration and this dream, I was still living with my father in Poitiers, Prairie during my post-secondary education years, and this included studying creative writing at home from correspondence. I had no money of my own, no way of paying for things, and my father wouldn't let me move out because not only would he be lonely, but he was so sure that I wouldn't be able to survive on my own in a city like Winnipeg. I had no resources to bring my writing career to fruition, no organizations to help me out, and I was wondering if this dream would ever be realized. That's why I was so happy in 2008 to finally move to Winnipeg when I was 29 years old. I joined the Society of Manitobans with Disabilities in the spring of 2009, and I believe that by the time that this event should be happening, it should already be called Manitoba Possible. They're changing the name. Because, as I told you at the beginning of this presentation, I've lived with cerebral palsy since birth. At first, this was for vocational rehabilitation to help me find employment, but shortly after I started this, I joined Adult Leisure and Recreation, and shortly after that, I began work at the Helping Hands Research Center for Immigrants and Refugees, Inc. This is a not-for-profit center which used to be at the Knox United Church on Edmonton Street. I was learning how to budget my money, and I figured that, if I couldn't give my money to an organization, I'll go work for one. This organization caters to newcomers to Canada as well as Canadian-born citizens, and is run by a female Christian evangelist named Rachel Allow, who has become such a good and dear friend to me over the years. Rachel Allow has actually devoted her life to reaching out to others and encourages them to educate themselves to become successful citizens and maximize their potentials, so to speak. I was working as an administrative assistant, writing up her correspondence and helping her plan programs catering to immigrant men, women, youth, and families. I liked my work and I was very good at it, and to tell you the truth, Rachel actually admired my writing style. But this wasn't going to be my career. So, in the spring of 2014, after 5 years of dedication, I told Rachel it was time to move on. She always encouraged people to develop their talents and put them to best use. And I told her that I was inspired to use my writing talents for good and purposeful things. My original intent was to get my writing into high schools as part of the English curriculums. But in September 2013, I self-published my first novel, Broken Family Portrait, and launched it at McNally Robinson the following January. And here it is, right here. Putting this down. So not only am I trying to get into universities and multiple courses, but this has also attracted the attention of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, which has led me to become a partial advocate in disability rights for dignity, fairness, and respect. Best of all, because SMD was a big supporter in my launch, I decided to give back to them by donating a portion of the sales from each book. About the same time I left Helping Hands, I also decided to put my plan into motion. So what I did was I called the Boomer Esiason Foundation and told them that I was interested in donating my unpublished writings to them. I even sent a 4-page letter, or maybe I should, well then now that I think about it, maybe I should cut it down to about 2 pages, which detailed my interest to them and why I wanted to work for and with Boomer. And I even sent the foundation a copy of Broken Family Portrait. In early June of 2014, a volunteer at the foundation by the name of Mike Hill called. So when I talked to him and explained my intent to volunteer my talent, he took an interest in me. So you're probably wondering, how does this process work? Okay, well, I send them my novels by email, either MS Word or PDF documents, and if I impress them well enough to agree, they will take the novel and represent me to a publisher. When the novel is published, a portion of the book sales will go to cystic fibrosis research in this case. 15% I heard, because they'll act as my agent. I had some unpublished works that I thought the foundation would love and agree to take. This would be Holly Springwood. This is a young adult novel about a young Canadian woman who journeys to the United States for love and independent living in hopes of seeing these two countries end their rivalry. Saving Karen Camp, another young adult novel about a teenager who is forced into a hardcore criminal gang in Winnipeg and is desperate to escape and turns to a good and kind-hearted police officer to help see him out, despite the fact that this gang despises the cops. And the cops have a doubtful sense, about criminal youth. Kilson's Mistake. This is a short children's story intended with illustrations about a young warlock who uses magic powers to bring sick animals back to health. And then we have Real Adventures in the Comic Book, a short children's novel about a 10-year-old boy who travels the world with his favorite comic book heroes and participates in their adventures to help save the city from evil. Pretty similar to what I'm doing. I sent all these works to the foundation, but when I told Mike about them, and about the Glory of Love saga, this whole adventure, action, romance thing, he told me that they were chiefly interested in novels with a cystic fibrosis or sports theme. I would have a total CF theme in my novel, but there are 2 things. 1, I don't have any kids of my own, I'm not even married, and I don't think anybody in my family has been affected by cystic fibrosis directly. But I wasn't going to let this stop me. So I told Mike that I would put a cystic fibrosis or sports connection in the Glory of Love books. That is, this started as a connection. But when I spoke with the Boomer Esiason Foundation again, just before I went back home for Christmas in 2016, I was passed over by the foundation board. They said my book had to be 100% about cystic fibrosis or sports. But again, I don't have enough experience to make my books totally about cystic fibrosis. So do I give up? No. Instead, I went back and I upgraded the cystic fibrosis connection to a subplot. And I did the same thing for the pro football connection in my second book, Lovers in a Dangerous Time. In my first novel, The Glory of Love, I created a major character named Jordan Butler, a socialite from another metropolis mentioned in the book called Liberty City, with a couple of brief scenes set there. She comes to Crystal Isle with a reputation where, when you think of her, you think of Kim Kardashian. I had this concept with this mindset that if old Timmy would actually find a cure for cystic fibrosis, as well as diabetes, HIV, AIDS, and various cancers, I think I'd be halfway impressed. I will read the following excerpt from Chapter 2, where the reader is not introduced to Jordan until the dinner party scene in Chapter 2. As Nightblazer speaks with Colleen, he notices another young woman staring at him, flirting with him. Her hair is raven black, down to her shoulders, but as she sits across the table, 5 spots away from him, he can't get the color of her eyes. Other people who notice her are talking about her as if they remember something scandalous about her. This includes Leander and Master Abraham, talking about how dishonorable she is. They talk as if she doesn't belong in Crystal Isle. Nightvisor notices the top part of the halter dress she is wearing, royal purple. She points to Nightvisor and asks the people in between her who she is. One older man sitting next to her can spot her with the other superhuman martial brothers and point. One older man sitting next to her can spot him with the other superhuman martial brothers and points them all out to her, including Nightvisor. Nightvisor looks at her again, trying not to flirt around Jennifer and Colleen, trying to resist, trying to focus on winning Natalie. But the woman is bold if not entirely beautiful, which Nightvisor also finds irresistible. The woman stands up, and Nightvisor notices that her dress ends 6 inches above the knee. A bit immodest for such a classy dinner party, he thinks. Twice, as she walks past him, she takes his empty cup. Wordlessly, with just a smile, she returns his cup filled with calorie-free cola. Both times he is too surprised to say thank you. Someone he doesn't even know is giving him unsolicited drinks, and she knows his favorite non-energy drink. He looks at the people surrounding her. Who told her all these things about him and his brothers, he wonders. And yet, she continues to flirt with him throughout the first serving. As Nightvisor, Highclere, and Leander go up for their second serving, they see an older man they know, one of Master Abraham's students from the Golden Katana, Mark Robertson. Nightvisor knows he was sitting next to the mysterious woman in the purple halter, the one who has just noticed him and starts flirting again. He points at the woman and asks Mark, "Who is that woman, the one in the revealing dress? She can't stop looking at me." Mark looks back at the woman and answers, "Don't you know, Nightvisor? Her name is Jordan Butler. She's a socialite from Liberty City. Her great-grandfather was one of the founders of the infamous Redmond Butler and Company department store. Her grandfather is David Butler, a very popular businessman in his time, and who's still with us at 93 years old, still very wily and smart and alert for a man his age." "Yeah, we believe that Master Abraham will live to 100, Highclere laughs as he puts more potato salad and chicken casserole on his plate. "It is incredible, isn't it?" Mark says. Anyway, Jordan came to Crystal Isle earlier this summer on her grandfather's orders. She has quite the scandalous reputation, and David Butler was so embarrassed by her latest stunt that he wrote her out of his will. Leander and Highclere go about filling their plates with no interest, but Nightvisor leans into Mark with interest. "What happened back in Liberty City?" "Back there, Jordan was married to Peter Stevens," Mark says. "You mean pop star Peter Stevens?" Nightvisor asks, trying to contain his excitement. "He's one of the most successful, talented, and popular singers out there. Surfside, Airman, and I insist on playing his music in a squad band." He clears his throat and tries to act more serious. "So, what about this marriage?" "Jordan met Peter at one of his hometown charity events. You'd know that he is a younger half-brother with cystic fibrosis, and she attended his concert that night. That's how she got his attention," Mark explains. This is a guy who launched his debut album at only 15 and had a song on a movie soundtrack at 13. So at 24, he thought he was ready to get married. But at 22, Jordan wasn't through living her life. Not even close. She continued to go to clubs and hook up with loads of other men. She cheated on him numerous times with numerous men, including members of the Liberty City Police and Fire Departments. And she messed around with cops and firefighters in other cities too, including when she came here to Crystal Isle. That is nasty, Nightblazer comments. Their fighting got so intense, Peter turned to drinking alcohol to cope with the stress. All of a sudden, he and his family start getting their names into tabloids after many of their fights with Jordan and his drinking episodes. Peter showing his drinking episodes. Peter showing up at his parents' CF benefit events drunk and singing and rapping incoherently, and he even puked on a woman's gown before passing out. Nightblazer looks sick but manages to ask, "How long has this been going on?" 2 years of marriage, Mark answers. And his latest album flopped and got bad reviews after more than a decade of #1 albums and top 10 hits on the charts. His drinking got so bad, his family and friends all begged him to go to rehab. The family blamed it entirely on Jordan. Back in March, several of Peter's older cousins got in trouble with the police after they were caught on camera beating Jordan up in an elevator. Their trial is impending, and Jordan may have to go back to Liberty City in the new year. Suddenly, Nightblazer isn't so attracted to her anymore. He decides that Natalie McDonnell is the one for him, and will ask him to reconsider Billy Wineland's engagement. Moments later, Jordan quiets the crowd at the table and stands with her drink in hand. She says, "Look, ladies and gentlemen, I know I'm the last person to show up here at such a high-class party, even though I have my older brother and 2 male cousins here with me, all the way from Liberty City." She knows Mr. McDonnell. By the way, I'd like to send my thanks to Richard McDonnell for extending the invitation 5,000 miles to my family. Even though Mom and Dad couldn't be here, they asked me and my siblings and cousins to represent Redmond, Butler and Company. "The Stevens family should be here," one female guest yells. "They're more charitable and classy than you could ever be, you tramp." But Jordan's cousins shout her down. Jordan ignores the criticism and says, "Despite my marriage, I hope I can start afresh here in Crystal Isle. Please tell the city's police department how sorry I am for how I disrespected them last time. This is a beautiful metropolis, and I wish to set up a winter home here come the late fall, since the weather here is so warm all the time. My sham of a marriage has been just as stressful for me as it has been for Peter, and it was actually my mother who encouraged me to find someone else, claiming his music career was beneath me. I will admit that I find policemen and firefighters attractive, but Mother hopes that I can land myself a businessman. But my divorce and the things I left behind in Liberty City have taught me that maybe it's time to settle down in Crystal Isle, and I'd like to find a man who has a little meat on his bones, who knows bravery and heroism, and who can take care of me." Jordan keeps talking, but Nightblazer is even less attracted to her than before. He looks over at his brothers, who are equally unimpressed. So is everyone else at the party, which Jordan realizes when she stops talking. Embarrassed, she retreats to another part of the mansion, slamming a door behind her. Oh, excuse me. "And I don't want someone so shallow and who only wants me for my body and hero status," Nightblazer whispers to himself. He scans the dining area for Natalie, hoping to see her. He will try to pursue her when dinner clears. Yes, Jordan was married to a singer named Peter Stevens, who makes a very rare appearance in the book, if ever. Now, imagine that Boomer Esiason had an older child, son or daughter, before Gunnar. This child would not have cystic fibrosis, but would go on to be a very successful and popular pop star, I should say. Imagine still that Boomer has an older niece or a nephew who is a famous singer or perhaps a TV or movie star. Imagine the money the Boomer Esiason Foundation would get if this were actually true. Imagine a portion of concert ticket sales, album sales, money earned from promotion endorsements, money being taken from film or television show salaries being used for cystic fibrosis research and awareness. If Boomer and his wife Cheryl did have another son who didn't have CF and could sing or act, I should say, or if their daughter Sydney had any of these talents, it would have made them famous for all the right reasons, and they'd be motivated to be positive role models for our youth. Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, Miley Cyrus, Justin Bieber, all you Kardashian Jenner sluts, I hope you get this. Anyway, so Peter Stevens is the pop star son of a very famous athlete named Matthew Stevens, who also got into sports media when he retired, and is also a known advocate in the fight against cystic fibrosis. I even modeled the father after Boomer in terms of his looks. But I wanted to distance Matthew Stevens from Boomer Esiason just a little bit, so I made him a baseball player. So, back to Jordan Butler. Jordan was exiled from Liberty City because her numerous cheating tries made her that unbeloved in the city. She even tried to pull a hot one on her own father-in-law, and basically much of North America sees her as a bad role model the same way they do Kim Kardashian. Supposedly, Jordan was throwing money at the Matthew Stevens Foundation the whole time she was married to Peter, but had no involvement in the planning and execution processes of these social and sporting events. And this made her a philanthropist. Jordan is attracted to Night Fighter, but these facts about her turn him off. In hopes to win her love, Jordan goes to work at a cystic fibrosis nonprofit called the Just Breathe Foundation, planning social events, including a Manitoba social in chapters 11 and 12, and the foundation's fundraising gala in chapter 28. She leaves her bed and heads to the bathroom. She shares a 2-bedroom apartment with Whitney and Ricky. She stares at herself in the mirrors as she visualizes memories of Liberty City in the mirror. She sees tabloid headlines plastered all over, all of them screaming her name, her choice while she was married. All the criticisms, belittling, and put down she received from Matthew Stevens' wife and relatives. All the negative publicity she got. All the terrible things she read when Yahoo, MSN, and other such public information websites wrote about her, saying what an awful role model she was to youth, how their parents didn't want their daughters to idolize her, how she is responsible for the trend of teenage girls and girls as young as 11 and 12 having sex. That last part is an absolute lie to her. Yet people all around the Western world believed it. Damn that Diane Stevens, she says lowly to herself, so she doesn't wake her roommates. Damn those sisters of Matthews. Damn that whole family to hell. How can they take that stuff and all the trashy magazines and TV shows? If those current affair and hard copy shows were still on, they'd make a killing as Liberty City-based contributors. She thinks about her teenage years, for her mother, a philanthropist and socialite herself, had groomed her to follow in her footsteps, taking her to all the parties and events, telling her about the importance to work for charity. She's been volunteering at numerous fundraising projects since she was 16. She's never been to college, but her mother said that being a socialite was her destiny, and that she would be married to a man who was either wealthy or in a position of authority. She thinks about all the firefighter calendar competitions and cop and firefighter bachelor auctions that she'd accompanied her mother to, all to benefit children's hospitals. How she fell in love with all the guys who strutted themselves. On her 18th birthday, several months after a cop and firefighter bachelor auction, her mother, older sister, and cousins set Jordan up with several of the men whose dates didn't work out. The sister and cousins had taken pictures with all the trice that ended up all over the internet. That's how she first got noticed. And while several female fans of firefighters and young adult children of celebrities were impressed enough to want to be friends with her, she also made many enemies among parents, caregivers, and sensible thinking teenagers. I'm not all that bad, she says. Why is the media listening to all these parents who think I'm a sex addict? I'm so far from it. My mother just has certain expectations for me, that's all. It could have been worse. I could have made a sex tape. She goes to the kitchen for something that will help her sleep and concentrate. She searches the pantry and comes across some hot chocolate. Maybe some peppermint flavored cocoa. As the water boils, she thinks about how she's going to earn money. She's been supporting herself with modeling and product promotion jobs, and she has a photo shoot at the beach between the south and southeastern bridges in just 12 hours. For some reason, her mind shifts to cystic fibrosis fundraising. She starts thinking about Peter Stevens and how her mother's donations and involvement in cystic fibrosis research attracted her to him. That and his bold, synthetic singing voice. His piercing blue-green eyes, his hair a mixture of white blonde and chocolate brunette, like a combination of all 5 superhuman Marshall brothers. Then she starts thinking about her mother again. How she's always admired Matthew Stevens for his charity work off the baseball field, but that marriage to his son would be lowering his standards. You only married Peter for his good looks and his ability to bring in girls for his fan base, she had told him the day after her wedding. He may be on top and hot right now, but what if he can't get on the charts anymore, and his albums start getting bad reviews? Do you want to support him for the rest of his life? And I bet he's not nearly as athletic or manly as his father. If some of his songs are any indication. No, Jordan, a pop star is not a suitable husband for you. And of course, Jordan had listened to her. She is regretful for only a few seconds, however, when thoughts of Night Rider begin to appear. She knows he is a crime fighter. He may not be a police officer, but a crime fighter working to defeat the criminals before the police come would be good enough. Sorry, having trouble clearing my throat. I'll start again. He may not be a police officer, but a crime fighter working to defeat the criminals before the police come would be good enough for her mother, right? She has so much in her mind right now, but it returns to Night Rider again. She hears the kettle click off, pours hot water into a large mug, and adds 3 tablespoons of cocoa. She sips slowly, savoring the minty taste. Her thoughts of Night Rider just as hot and tasty. She knows she wants Night Rider, especially since she's not interested in going back to Peter. She came to Crystal Isle to start afresh, and that's exactly what she resolves to do. It's what she's been doing in her modeling gigs, wearing numerous gowns designed for formal events. Clothes from other people's lines. She's never thought of starting her own. But maybe she should, and give a portion of the proceeds from sales to the Matthew Stevens Foundation, to appease her in-laws. It is perhaps the kitchen light, but it causes Whitney to leave her bed and find Jordan sitting at the dining table. She shakes her head at her and says, "What are you doing up? Don't you have a fashion shoot tomorrow? This is a very bad time to get insomnia." Jordan sighs and says, "All these thoughts about Night Rider and Peter and his family, that's what's keeping me up. I don't know what's the matter with him. I know Night Rider and I would be right for each other, but he and his family obviously pay attention to all the trashy gossip, in addition to their ninja training and crime fighting. Or maybe their other students are telling them stuff, I don't know. I'm trying to think of how I can win his heart." She sips her cocoa and looks curiously at Whitney. "Whitney, what did you and Ricky think when you first met me?" Whitney laughs and replies, "Well, we could definitely tell who you were right away. We thought you were a beautiful, intelligent, fascinating person. who has a very good following. You certainly have a lot of young girls who want to be just like you. Of course, Jordan brags. I was fabulous, famous, and wealthy back in Liberty City. She looks around the kitchen, looking fierce and posing and seeing if there are cameras filming her, even though there aren't. She turns back to Whitney. But I don't know why Nightblazer and all his family and everyone here in Crystal Isle believe all this stuff about me not taking matrimony seriously. I mean, really, I'm not a whore. I mean, yes, I have posed in skimpy outfits for men's magazines in the past, but it's only to get myself out there. When I wasn't modeling, I was putting my time into raising awareness for cystic fibrosis, trying to use my fame and celebrity for good things like Matthew and Peter did. Whitney tries not to laugh again. You're still interested in raising money for CF awareness? When you first came to us, you showed no sign of caring for Peter Stevens. I didn't think you'd still care about him that much. Isn't your mother a famous philanthropist? Are you sure you can't find another cause, like breast cancer or ending racism? Jordan chuckles and replies, just because my mother didn't approve of Peter doesn't mean I can't still do what I was doing when I was still married. Mother still had respect for Matthew Stevens' contributions to children and charities. I'm basing my plans on solely that. She takes her cocoa to the computer, goes online, and types cystic fibrosis benefit events into her Google search. She searches through all the Foundation's websites and is attracted to the 2 sales events that the Matthew Stevens Foundation is putting on later in September. But she frowns heavily. Both are being held in Liberty City. I don't think Liberty City is ready to tackle with me again, she says. She clicks back to the Google. She clicks back to the Google search. She finds another information site with a news story from 2 months earlier. She reads the article and is surprised and inspired. It talks about the upcoming Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Week in the next month, and that the annual North American CF Awareness Conference will be held in Crystal Isle. Jordan whistles and says to Whitney, "Wow, this is awesome! Maybe if I volunteer part-time at one of the cystic fibrosis nonprofits in Crystal Isle, and maybe do something for children and families and the community, maybe I can become Crystal Isle's most popular citizen and win Nightblazer's heart in the process. Work during the week and party on the weekend, Whitney says. That'll build your reputation as a philanthropist and a socialite, and earn you respect from your next boyfriend. If not from Nightblazer, then maybe someone on the Crystal Isle police force. In the meantime, you should call the Just Breathe Foundation. It's one of the most popular nonprofits for cystic fibrosis right here in the city. I'm sure maybe you can volunteer 3 days a week or part-time planning social events." "Cool, Whitney," Jordan smiles. She takes a bigger drink of cocoa, hoping she'll be able to sleep. It is the day after Labor Day, and Jordan is driving to Just Breathe for her volunteering job interview. It's located on the edge of Main Street, just before Diamante Street, in a building called the Main Diamante Plaza, with a lot of offices. She walks in and notices Just Breathe immediately in the directory. It is the only J listing. 8th floor, suite number 805. She heads to the elevator and rides upwards, repeating to herself, "I will win Nightblazer's heart and the hearts of everyone in Crystal Isle. I will win Nightblazer's heart and the hearts of everyone in Crystal Isle." She finds the door with the right number, but it's locked. She knocks, and it isn't a few seconds before a tropical native-looking woman, dark-skinned like she's of some native ancestry, dressed in business chic, answers the door and immediately notices her. Jordan can't tell if she's disgusted or excited to see her. "Oh my goodness," the woman says. "You're Jordan Butler from Liberty City. And I take it you're a big fan of Peter Stevens and his family," Jordan guesses. The woman smiles and lets her inside. "Well, given all he's done to make cure for cystic fibrosis within our reach, How can I not be? Also, I do tend to listen to a lot of pop for teens and young adults, and I'm approaching 40. She and Jordan laughed together. I take it you're here to see Caroline Massey? Let me take you to her. Jordan is led to Miss Massey's office. Her door opened. Inside, she sees a woman with a short blonde haircut, black trimmed glasses, whom she thinks could use some makeup tips. She keeps herself from asking if this woman only wears light foundation and lipstick. She wears a white turtleneck and black slacks that would likely make one sweat profusely in typical Crystal Isle weather. But she also knows it's inappropriate and unprofessional to ask about deodorant during... let me start again. But she also knows it's inappropriate and unprofessional to ask about deodorant during a job interview. She resolves not to say anything and let Miss Massey ask all the questions. To her surprise, Miss Massey also knows Jordan when he sees her. Her reaction is mixed. Part of Jordan wonders if her being hired will bring down Just Breed's reputation, and how many other full-time staff will quit in protest with her on the team. Is this what Miss Massey is thinking right now? But Jordan decides not to let this show. She shakes her hand and says, "Good afternoon, Miss Massey." "Same to you, Jordan Butler," Miss Massey replies. "Thank you for that wonderful email and attaching your resume along with it." Jordan sits across from Miss Massey and listens as she asks questions. "So tell me, Jordan, what attracted you to Just Breathe?" Miss Massey asks. "My friend and roommate Whitney told me about this," Jordan replies. "She tells me that you guys are very popular with philanthropists and families and even volunteers." She tells about the fundraising events she put on and attended in Liberty City, all through her mother. She also talks about the celebrity statuses of both Matthew and Peter Stevens, and how Peter uses his own celebrity status to be a role model for fans. That's what attracted me to him and his family, the fact that they all look so dazzling. "I've been accused by the media, child advocates, and parents alike of being a horrible role model for youth," she continues. "They say that all I do is bare my body for magazines, dress too little for nightclubs, as if that's all I go to at night, and sleep with anyone who will tear his shirt and flex his muscular body in front of me. They say that all my philanthropic work's for show. Sure, I show up at the event, get photographed having a good time, and learning as I socialize, and donate cash amounts for the cause. But they say that if I gave at least half my money to charity, they'd be halfway impressed. Well, that's all fine and good, but I was sharing rent and bill expense with Peter when we were married." "I know about Matthew the Machine Stevens," Miss Massey grins, "one of the leading celebrity figures in fighting cystic fibrosis. And you were married to his son at one point, correct?" "I was," Jordan replies. "But despite his own contributions to charity, my mother thought that I was lowering my standards by being married to an artist." She waves two fingers on the word artist. "Not that I'm mad at her, but going along with her directions did ruin my reputation in Liberty City. She has an idea of what she wants in a son-in-law." Miss Massey smiles. "Well, you're in luck. Unlike Matthew Stevens, Just Breathe does not associate itself with celebrity, although we do sporting events as well as social. Here you'll see lots and lots of normal folks working to make a difference for children. Now, you may be a celebrity in your own right, but I think you plan to drop all that in order to fit in with Crystal Isle." She picks up Jordan's resume. "I see by your resume that you're chiefly interested in social event planning." "Yes, if there's one thing that gets me in the mood, it's a good party," Jordan answers. "I've put on galas and benefit dance events for Matthew Stevens, and 3 times I rented out entire nightclubs for these events. In this case, it was a celebration event to kick off summer. But now that we're getting into fall, it's back to me seeking out rental halls. Not only have I done that, but I have also led decorating committees to get the locations looking beautiful for a successful event. I pick out amazing themes and colors and other such decor to make it unforgettable. I can take a formal dance event and make it look like a high school prom or a seasonal formal This along with choosing the entertainment, games, draws, and prizes to make an unforgettable night. She sighs harshly and rolls her eyes. And yet, one of the many people I could never impress here was my mother-in-law. You do remember that Diane Stevens is actually Peter's stepmother, Miss Massey reminds her. Yeah, don't remind me. Jordan rolls her eyes again. What else can you do in the fundraising realm? Miss Massey asks again. Can you put together an event for families, such as a picnic? I've never actually done that before. Have you had any experience with kids? Jordan shakes her head. Although one of my older brothers and some of my cousins are married with children, I'm usually not around them all that much. They don't ask me to babysit anyway. There aren't very many socialites on my father's side of the family, just my two sisters and me. And those who have usually slowed down since starting their own families. I've left my whole family behind in Liberty City. But comes the spring or summer, I can probably put on an event for older youth who have cystic fibrosis. I can certainly submit a child abuse registry check at your request, but I would like to get started as soon as possible. For now, I'll stick to social events for young and older adults and the Crystal Isle social scene. How about you get started right away, Miss Massey suggests. The Just Breathe Foundation is one of 4 nonprofit sponsors for the Crystal Wave Surf competition that is starting just this weekend. If you start perhaps tomorrow, your first assignment will be to put together and run an information booth, handing out literature and speaking about why it's important that we find a cure for CF. Are you up for the job? I am, Jordan replies. Excellent, Miss Massey responds. The annual Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Conference is also going to be held here in Crystal Isle, and we are planning a large social event to tie into that special weekend. You will also be responsible for putting it together. Jordan's grin can cover her face. Sounds pretty boss to me. I'd like to take charge in the planning. Rallies, the food, the drinks. I'll even find a good DJ. She is proud of herself, how well her interview goes. She has showed Caroline Massey that she has the drive to bring in fundraising and funding and awareness. As she leaves the building, she starts thinking about Peter again. She knows he is the product of a one-time fling between Matthew Stevens and his former high school girlfriend in their senior year of college, Lorna Antwerp, and Jordan remembers all the bad things Peter and Matthew's family said about her, how she pushed Peter into a music career when she realized his singing talent, how she made him stay home from school every Tuesday and Thursday to rehearse singing and dance, and made him practice on Saturdays too, and all the punishments she gave him when he refused and wanted to go to school these days, how she also physically punished him whenever he kept making the same mistake over and over, and for losing a talent competition by even half a point. Jordan knows that Lorna had ignored all the warnings from Peter's old elementary school. And this wasn't even the reason why Child Protective Services took him away and gave him to his father. She can't forget that story of how, at only 9 years old, Lorna was beating Peter's backside with a lint brush for losing a budding star by half a star, even though he gave a great performance, and then recorded it all on videotape. Although Lorna broadcasted it as a warning to other disobedient child stars in the making, Jordan knows it was a mistake to give it to the television media. She remembers how her mother had shielded her away from it, and how badly she was crying when the news story ended. Still, she wonders how Lorna would have fared as a mother-in-law. Certainly, she hopes she would have been better than Diane was to her, even if she was an out-of-control stage mother. Surely Peter's mother changed after getting her son taken away, she said to herself. She stops at a stoplight and has a sudden realization. She talks to herself again. Jordan, that's all in the past. Focus on the future. You're living in Crystal Isle and Peter's not interested in taking you back. Think about Night Razor. It's him you want. You love him, and you love it here in Crystal Isle. Get Peter and his stupid family out of your brain. When the light turns green, she speeds up a little on her way home, but slows down when she approaches the car ahead of her. The night of the social arrives, and Jordan has spent these past 2 days attending the Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Conference, as she tells Nightvisor about it over dinner. They're in this food court at the Honolulu International Center. She decides that after spending $60 on a buffet, she needs to be 50er. It was informative, she says, as she eats some Thai noodles. Of course, all the scientific research bored me to tears, but it makes me confident that a cure is within reach. I don't know much about the condition, really, Nightvisor replies. You're more invested in this than I thought. Then he remembers Peter Stevens, all the interviews he gave on television, talking about his half-brother and his charity work, how important it was to end the nightmare of cystic fibrosis. He knows that being a role model to his fans has been important to Peter because of this alone. Nightvisor stares at Jordan, feeling threatened. Can she be thinking about him now? They arrive at the Diamond Head Center shortly before 8 o'clock. Master Abraham and my brother said they'd be here shortly after 9, Nightvisor says to Jordan as they show their tickets. Let's find a table close to the doors and wait for them. Inside, they find the ground floor is open, and inside they find the ground floor is open, but there are few people socializing. The floors above it are closed and sealed off. All the food and drink services are open and serving both alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks. Jordan points to both. The alcoholic drinks they serve cost you money, she says. She points to the tables outside the gameplay area, the ones with the 2-liter pop bottles and clear plastic cups, the ice buckets. Those drinks are free, but like the alcohol, if you get pop at the vendors, it'll cost you money. Same with the food and snacks, and they got the prices listed. And just for this one night, everything goes to the Just Beats Foundation, Nightvisor guesses. You got that right, Jordan grins. The interior of the arena is set up to resemble a hockey rink. Pop music can be heard from the inside, and it's attracting Jordan. She grabs Nightvisor's arm and takes him inside. The rink is divided up between tables and dance floor. On the side where they enter, they see 30 sets of tables with 20 chairs each. Behind them are 6 more tables, each holding 3 raffle prize packages. More chairs lined up along the sidelines without blocking exits, many of them empty. They find a completely empty table and sit together at the far end. Don't worry, Jordan says. Give it an hour and these tables and chairs will fill up. Can I get you anything to drink? I see some calorie-free cola outside, Nightvisor says. I'll have some of that. Jordan leaves and Nightvisor looks around. All the seats in the seating areas are covered in large blue and black vinyl. Above them is a lighted banner-like sign that usually displays advertising and slogans like "Make some noise." They simply say Cystic Fibrosis Benefit Social Event. He turns his head to see the scoreboard above. It's inactive except for the screen that also reads Cystic Fibrosis Benefit Social Event, alternating between the Just Beats Foundation and the Crystal Isle Typhoon's logos. Streams of gold, blue, white, and gray are seen all around the bottom of the scoreboard, connecting to the electric banner. Plexiglass is all around, displaying pictures of children and young adults with cystic fibrosis, and graphics of people dancing and socializing. Colorful party graphics all around. Wow, this is fancy, he says to himself. I predict a large turnout. If they can hold rock concerts here, why not a large social? Jordan returns with 2 red solo cups filled with soda and ice. Thanks, he replies. This really hits the spot. You're welcome, she replies. Normally the cups are free, but as this is a charity event, the arena decided to put the price on them too. $1 each. So unless you're carrying extra change, you better hold on to that. Just as they finish their first drinks, they see Jennifer, Amanda, and the entire Maitland family come in. Nightvisor flags them down, even excuses himself, and walks toward Jennifer to hug and kiss her hello. Nightvisor, I'm so glad to see you here, Jennifer says. Thanks for coming. Are your sensei and brothers coming? Nightvisor nods and says, they should be here in almost an hour. Jennifer turns to her aunt, Dolly Maitland Paxton, a senior woman around 65, with her husband and 4 children, all older than Jennifer. The youngest looking around 26, Nightvisor guesses. I'm sure you all remember Nightvisor, don't you? He and I just started going steady. He encouraged me to work with Just Breathe when I was looking for a job. Jennifer points at Jordan. And this is Jordan Butler. She helped organize all this, including arranging all the raffle prizes. Unfortunately, she was a no-show in the whole decorating thing. She left it all up to me. Liz and Anthony, seriously, if you didn't help us, we would have never been ready. She pointed to the 2 oldest Paxton siblings. That's because I was at a cystic fibrosis awareness conference with Miss Massey. Remember? Jordan reminds her. Mrs. Paxton smiles at Nightvisor and puts her hand on his shoulder. Please don't think this is anything against you. Jennifer talks about how nice and sweet you are to her. Does it help that I was willing to pay for my own ticket? Nightvisor asks. Nightvisor, I seriously don't think it would have changed my mind, Mr. Maitland assures him. It was Dolly's idea that we make this all about the family. Jordan looks over at the pairs of married parents and comments, Then I'm afraid the only ones who will be dancing in pairs will be your parents and your aunt and uncle. Nightvisor gives her a strange look, not believing the things she is saying. Jennifer, Amanda, and their cousins laugh it off anyway. You know, you 2 are welcome to dance with all of us in a group if you want, Amanda offers. When the dance floor opens, okay? Nightvisor answers. Probably not for another 2 hours. He moves himself and Jordan over to seats close to the plexiglass and lets the Maitland family share a table. Back in the rink, Jordan is still on the floor, having danced to 2 more songs when Jennifer and Nightvisor tap her on the shoulder. Jordan, what are you doing? She asks. The floor is not open yet, and nobody is dancing. Come back to our table and talk to us. Jordan starts to walk with her, but when they get closer to the table, she sees Matthew and Diane Stevens sitting with the Maitland and Paxton families. Master Abraham and the superhuman Marshall brothers having joined the group. She steps back a few steps, taking Nightvisor with her, and they stare at Matthew and Diane from afar. Matthew, with his blonde hair the color of butter, his face and body frame that always makes Nightvisor think he should have had a career in movies, not sports. He stares at his blue button-down shirt and brown sports jacket, no necktie. Nightvisor always gets jealous at the fact that Matthew Stevens would look better in a suit and tie than he would, especially when he watches him on television. He can't see if his pants match, but he bites his lip to keep from referring to it as a monkey suit. There he is, sitting across from Mrs. Paxton, as they talk all about his contributions to children and charities. And there's Diane sitting with him, her own blonde hair only a shade lighter, looking beautiful in that sapphire blue dress and pearl necklace. With every passing moment, looking them over, Jordan looks and feels sicker. Thank heavens that couple isn't looking their way. Oh God, I need air, Jordan says, hoping they don't overhear. Want me to get you a drink? Nightvisor offers. You can get me 10 drinks, she answers. I need to cool myself down. In the hallway, Jordan pours some calorie-free cola into a red solo cup. Nightvisor can't get Matthew's looks out of his head. So, that's the guy you supposedly seduced on his birthday last year, he wonders. I'm muscular and athletic myself, but I'd kill to have his hair, at least. And if that bitch looked my way, that's the first thing she'd think of, Jordan muses. Can you believe they're both approaching 50 and they look like magazine cover models? Matthew looks like he should be modeling menswear in the Wineland and McDonald catalogs, or filming an action thriller where he plays some hot widow detective looking for some tail. She is finishing her drink when Diane steps out in the hallway. She's not happy to see her, but she does sound civil when he speaks to her. Hello, Jordan. Hello, Diane, Jordan answers, not looking up at her. Glad you and Matthew could make it. Nightvisor is still squeezing her hand, but Jordan notes this and says, Nightvisor, if you want to go back into the rink, Diane and I can talk in private. He nods and leaves the women alone. She slowly turns her head towards her estranged mother-in-law. So, how's Peter been doing? I think it's been 6 months since he first left. He got out in 4, Diane says. Matthew had to analyze the All-Stars game for radio, and his pre-game show was on location. We had to thank God that the game was close to Sunset West so he could stay and visit Peter. Look, I feel guilty enough as it is, Jordan begins. Oh, what a load of trash, Diane spits. Then what was that story about you with those cops and firefighters of Crystal Isle at their annual picnic back in early August? They also had a cop and firefighter beach volleyball game, and they looked hot in their Speedos, Jordan says. What was I supposed to do? And anyway, I didn't have anyone serious back then, and it was a public event. It was just a one-time thing where I was touching intimate body parts. And you were making them enjoy it, Diane replies. Yeah, well, it wasn't like I was thinking about Peter then. I was thinking more about how happy I was to be rid of you. Diane looks as if she hit her with a taser. Excuse me? At least I've remained faithful to Matthew for more than 20 years, and our marriage had the strength to survive your little tryst with him last year. Jordan tries to shush her, looking around. Perhaps people have heard, but it looks as if they don't notice them. Perhaps people have heard, but it looks as if they don't notice them. Will you keep your voice down, she hisses. If you try to embarrass me, it's not going to work. I'm trying to build a reputation as a charitable celebrity, not just some socialite who knows and does little. Oh, and I'm sure you chose cystic fibrosis fundraising to try and build that reputation, right? Diane says. No, you chose this because it's what Matthew and I have been doing for close to 20 years, and you're desperate to get back into my stepson's pants. And probably my husband's too. Jordan gives her an unbelievable looking stare. And you're going to call me a sick woman? Look at the assumptions you've been making towards me this whole damn conference weekend. You've made a career out of starting and spreading rumors about me and criticizing my lifestyle the entire time I was married to Peter. You and your siblings and his damn sisters. God, I'd hate to have one of them for a mother-in-law. And yet, that didn't stop you from sectioning out the policemen and firemen of Liberty City. Then who was that you were with just now? His name is Lightfoot, and he is one of the superhuman Marshall brothers. And the moment I saw him at that party, and this was 2 weeks after the picnic, by the way, I decided I didn't want anyone else, not even Peter or Matthew. This just has me thinking about them, that's all. And I'm doing this out of their respect. I'm going to find that young man, or maybe pick him out from that group he's likely with, and tell him what kind of woman you really are. Diane hurries back into the rink. Jordan finishes her cola and pours herself another cup. She takes it back to the rink, desperate to find Nightvisor. No way is she dragging him into the soap opera, she decides. In the distance, Diane's back is towards Jordan as she's speaking. Nastily, Jordan thinks, with Nightvisor. He's looking over her shoulder at Jordan, unsure if she should believe all the stories she's been telling about her. Then he's replying to Diane, probably saying that he knows about Jordan's scandalous past, but she's trying to change. Then Jennifer gets involved in the conversation, adding that if it wasn't true, then Jordan wouldn't have set this whole thing up. But Jordan isn't waiting for an apology from her. And later on, after 45 more minutes, the DJ decides to play a set a set of slow dance songs. And this first one is also from Peter's debut album, Night Visor and Jordan. No. Sorry, let me start again. After 45 minutes, the DJ decides to play a set of slow dance songs, and the first one is also from Peter's debut album, Night Visor and Jordan Notice. The ballad is first bass slow. Jordan insists on going back to the floor. Jordan insists on going back to the floor for this one. Night Visor tries to dance like a gentleman, but looks awkwardly at Jordan. "Gee, Jordan," he says, "you seem awfully hankered on Peter. You insist on dancing to all his songs. And here's a little trivia," Jordan says. "This song, You're Striking Me Out, and Swinging Around were all written by the same songwriter, Greg Amberson." Some people at Singleton Records heard Peter sing the national anthem at one of the Liberty City home baseball games, and they were so blown away at his talent they wanted to sign him to a record deal. "I guess they knew it wasn't lip-syncing," Night Visor says. "Right, and this was when Peter was 14 and agreed to a record deal. Anyway, Greg Amberson learned that Peter was the son of a baseball great, and after doing enough research on Matthew's career, wrote those songs exclusively for Peter." Night Visor stays silent, but Jordan keeps speaking. And the title of this album, Jackhammer Kings and Stingers, represents the team that Matthew played for. Night Visor groans a bit. How much more about Peter Stevens' life story does he need to hear? Will Jordan start gushing at his good looks again? Meanwhile, Diane, Master Abraham, Leander, and Highclere are watching them from their table. Diane looks less than impressed. "Oh, that looks so pathetic," she says to Master Abraham. "Anyone with working eyes can see this is all for show. Notice that Jordan's been dancing to every one of Peter's songs that's played so far, including when Matt and I came here before the floor opened." "Take heart, good woman," Master Abraham replies. "She's been trying to stay faithful to my nephew and student." "Well, she looks ridiculous," Diane complains. "And she's going to try and convince me that she's moved on. I don't know who she thinks she's fooling, but it isn't the two of us." The second slow dance song comes on, and Matthew and Diane go out to the dance floor. Diane insists on dancing next to Night Visor and Jordan. Jordan is horrified but prepares for a fight. "Listen, you skank," Diane says to her as both couples sway around. "If you were really trying to move on from Peter, you would have stayed off the dance floor when his music came on." Jordan responds, but her voice is louder, especially when she sways away from Diane. "Excuse me," she cries. "You listen. I wasn't even in Peter's life when this album made it big. Not even when it hit the mark of 12 million copies sold. Oh, and what was that swooning I saw when Peter was singing this very song at his homecoming concert in Liberty City?" Diane calls back. "I was sitting in the front row across from you, and you were moving your head around like some lovesick fool. You honestly think he was singing to you? I even saw you take off your bra while your shirt stayed on, and you threw it at his feet." "I threw my bra at Peter's feet," Jordan repeats incredulously. "That is just a spectacle of your sick imagination." "And yet you were hitting on him when you were backstage, saying things I'm too much of a lady to repeat in public," Diane continues. They are standing side by side now. "And when you were dating the son of Liberty's then police commissioner, who was a rookie cop." "Excuse me, all to hell," Jordan yells back, "but Mike McSweeney and I were already broken up when I went to that concert. My sister and my girlfriends bought the ticket for me to cheer me up. Right when I saw Peter, I knew he would be the one for me, and I didn't care what my mother thought back then. I even tried to convince her that I needed a break from the police. Yes, and yet that didn't stop you from putting your slight little hands on the cops while you were married. Face it, Jordan, you have a fetish for heroes, and from what your boyfriend sensei tells me, you're only interested in that guy because he's part of a crime-fighting team. Go to hell, Diane, Jordan spits, then takes Night Badger back to the new table to keep watching the Kensingtons. Right now they look depressed, talking about the very bad luck they've been having. Yes, Jordan does great work for Just Breathe, but at this time, Night Badger is already dating Jennifer Maitland, who works for the same nonprofit. Now, when I showed this all around at the Keycon Fantasy and Science Fiction Conference in May of 2016, I met a fantasy writer named Julie Zerneda. Yes, Julie Zerneda. When I talked about the book and what I'm doing with the Boomer Esiason Foundation, one of the pieces of advice she gave me was to incorporate some fight scenes and comic book action into the cystic fibrosis connection, which, again, I upgraded to a subplot, which I did. For example, in Chapter 12, one of the Kensingtons' oldest brother, Rancourt, catches his romance-minded younger brothers, Iron Maid and Firewall and Friesler, trying to pick up girlfriends when they were supposed to be recruiting people into a citizen ninja army that they're building. Allow me to read from this scene. Rancourt keeps yelling at his brothers loud enough for Night Badger and Jordan to overhear. You guys are supposed to be recruiting people here to join Father's ninja army. Night Badger approaches the Kensington brothers, glaring at them. I knew there was something suspicious about you. You said you were here to land a date. Yeah, well, you're not supposed to look for a girlfriend, Rancourt reminds them. We need more recruits in the army if we want to hatch Father's master plan. Hold it, Night Badger objects. You guys aren't recruiting anyone here tonight, and some are from out of town. He looks on the dance floor to see Matthew and Diane still dancing to yet another slow ballad. If you are really here to cause trouble, I suggest you leave. Why don't you make us, Rancourt replies. He begins to shove Night Badger a foot back, then makes his way to the DJ station where he abruptly stops the music. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, he says in a creepy voice, resembling an antagonist on a horror movie. We come here tonight because you are a large enough crowd and we are in search of more recruits, people like you. Together we can work to take over Crystal Isle and the world and make both fall to the bidding of my father, King Beater. The crowd just stares at Rancourt, not believing him, and some even try to muffle in laughter. Rancourt looks down at the turntables, music players, and other equipment and starts waving his hands above them to manipulate them. He activates the equipment and it starts to make loud siren and beeping noises. Everyone gets annoyed and they begin to cover their ears. Night Badger joins the rest of the superhuman Marshall brothers and they prepare to get involved. Surfside looks concerned and asks over the noise, how are we going to pull this off? We don't have our weapons. Night Badger, you didn't even think to bring your glasses. Then you must use your hand and foot abilities, Master Abraham says. Go! I'll alert the security and tell them what's happening. Leander gives a small pep talk. Okay, boys, let's get in there and stop this. He and the other brothers put their hands in and yell harmoniously, It's superhuman time! All four brothers run towards the Kensingtons and begin with the punching and kicking until it turns into a 5 versus 4 brawl. Both sets of brothers are knocking each other out to the floor with arms and legs. Highclere makes himself invisible so he can't be touched while fighting. Rancourt and Iron Maid keep getting surprised when an unknown being keeps kicking and throwing them around out of nowhere. Meanwhile, Master Abraham and Techne hurry to the DJ station, and Master Abraham quickly asks to borrow the microphone. Techne is working to stop the noise. As horrified and panicked witnesses flee the rink, Master Abraham says, Do not be afraid. Everyone must leave the arena space in an orderly fashion and go out in the hallways where it's safe. Do not leave the center itself. This will be over in a few minutes. Valerie pretends to flee, but it stays at the entrance of the rink, where she won't be injured. She retrieves a small camcorder from her purse, activates the function that allows recording in dim light, and records the battle. She whispers to herself, "My journalism professor is going to love this." As Jordan, Jennifer, Amanda, and Miss Massey leave, they look over at the tables with the raffle prizes. They manage to stay out of the way, but the superhuman Marshall brothers and the Kensington brothers are now crashing each other into the tables. Leander crushes Rancourt into one table, while Iron Maid throws Night Visor and Arrowman onto another table, wrecking them both. Jordan and Jennifer immediately head toward the raffle prizes and begin to get them off the tables, along with the descriptions. "Jordan, Jennifer," Miss Massey cries, "what are you doing? You can't carry all that." "We have to safeguard them and get them out of the way," Jennifer calls back as she collects three box sets of wine glasses. "If these tables get wrecked when the ball comes over here, the prizes will be wrecked with them." Amanda nods and goes for a small tray with lottery tickets. She takes it out to the hall, then goes back and helps her sister for the rest of the prizes. She looks over at the Kensington brothers. She points at them and adds, "And it'll keep those guys from stealing the raffle prizes too." It takes several trips, but the women manage to clear the tables of raffle prizes, putting them on the tables with the soda pop. Thankfully, they see the fighting stays at the social tables, the brothers trying to whack a few of the Kensingtons. The fight even spills out into the dance area. When the rink is cleared of citizens, Techne manages to fix the DJ equipment and stop the noise. He then takes Master Abraham and joins the others in the hallway. They try to get Valerie on the way, but she refuses. "You're kidding me, right?" she responds. "This is news, and it's going to get me an A on Monday." After 10 minutes of fighting, the Kensington brothers refusing to let up, Highclere's After 10 minutes of fighting, the Kensington brothers refusing to let up, Highclere's invisibility powers begin to wear off. When he is fully visible, Rancourt and Iron Maid punch him in the face a few times. Highclere looks at the scoreboard attached to the ceiling and gets an idea. "Grab my hands and form a link, all of you," he says to his brothers. The superhuman Marshall brothers do as instructed. Then Highclere counts to 3, and they all jump up. Highclere leaps on top of the scoreboard, and he and Leander help the rest of the brothers up. The fight ceases for a few minutes as the Kensingtons look around, confused, trying to find their fight opponents. "Where the heck did they go?" Firewall asks. "They seem to have disappeared," Rancourt says. "They have to come out sometime." Arrowman looks around at the supports on the scoreboard and sighs. "And here Master Abraham says we have to be prepared for anything and expect the unexpected," he says slowly. "Of all the times to forget my bow and arrow, I would love to shoot all these wires down and send this thing crashing on their heads." "Don't be ridiculous," Surfside objects. "This is a new scoreboard that had to come out of the city tax money." "I have a much better idea," Highclere says, looking down at the arena floor. He stands in the middle of the scoreboard top and calls out to the Kensingtons, "Why don't you meet us at the edge of the scoreboard?" Leander, Night Visor, Surfside, and Arrowman each take a side, Highclere coming over to Leander's side. Night Visor notices all the Kensingtons at his edge and motions his brothers over. They look down, but still staying out of their sight as the enemies look up, down, and all around for them. "Oh yeah, stand still, you wannabe maggots," Night Visor mutters under his breath. "On 3, boys," Leander whispers, and all the brothers get ready to jump. Leander gets to 3, and he and Highclere are the first to jump, followed by the rest of the brothers simultaneously. They land on Rancourt, Iron Maid, Firewall, and Friesler. The twins' power is useless with all the weight under them. Only Highclere can stand up, but security helps the others up before apprehending the Kensingtons. Highclere shakes his head. "Man, you guys need to work on your landings," he comments. "Is everyone all right?" Leander asks. Surfside and Arrowman have landed so hard they feel their legs are slightly injured. Not bad enough to get them to the hospital, but Surfside says, I don't think I'll be dancing anymore for the rest of the night. I'm good, since Rancourt broke my fall, Nightvisor says. I just hope you also don't get kicked out of the social. Hey, we saved the people from being recruited into Peter's army, Heikler says. If anything, we should be getting free drinks for the rest of the event. When the Kensington brothers are gone, one security guard goes up to all the superhuman Marshall brothers and says, Thank you for saving this event. We will see that the courts give you a good reward. Thank you, sir, Leander responds. Right away, 3 tables are brought in to replace the damaged ones, and all the chairs that had been turned over are now standing properly. The DJ goes back to his station and starts up the music. Jennifer and Jordan are thankful that none of the raffle prize tables are destroyed, and work to put them all back where they are. The social resumes, but now Nightvisor is trying to convince Leander, Highclere, and Technique to come dance with them. Well, since Surfside and Narrowman are out of commission, I suppose they can get out there for a few songs, Technique says. Leander and Highclere agree, and the 3 of them take Jennifer and Jordan out to the floor. As another example, in Chapter 17, during a Just Beat fundraiser, an event called the Summer and Winter Bash, the restaurant and nightclub where it's held catches fire and Jennifer is killed. Meanwhile, inside the deserted restaurant, Rancourt, Iron Maid, and Firewall sneak into the back doors. Iron Maid tearing them from the hinges. They look around the restaurant for any suspicious staff members looking to report them. 2 waiters spot them and head to the manager of the restaurant. Stay here, Rancourt says to Firewall. Then he and Iron Maid retrieve some steel rods from a large bag they're carrying. They follow the waiters into the manager's office and hit them over their heads 3 times each, knocking them out. Once they're taken care of, they proceed downstairs to the nightclub where they see 2 unarmed bodyguards. On Rancourt's orders, they use the same weapon, same number of times, and they're knocked out as well, falling on the floor with a thud. Rancourt makes a facepalm move, shaking his head. You idiot, he whispers. I told you not too hard. You want everyone to hear and get suspicious? Iron Maid takes the bodyguards away to dispose in the restaurant bathrooms. Rancourt opens the doors and looks inside the club. Everyone seems to be fixed on Caroline Massey as she wraps up her speech. And with the support and dedication of volunteers and families just like you, she concludes, we can see the day where we can look into the eyes of a child living with cystic fibrosis and say, you will be cured because we won. This is followed by loud applause. Firewall takes out a dozen candle bombs from the bag of weapons. They are Rancourt's latest invention. He spent the past 2 months making several batches. He lights them and covers the tops. I'm getting ready here, he says. He rolls them on the floor of the club and they stop under the tables. In the dimly lit atmosphere, the people barely notice. Some of them, however, pick them up to look at them for a few seconds, then put them back on the floor when they can't figure out what they are. Rancourt, Iron Maid, and Firewall snicker as they leave the club. As Rancourt and Firewall light the rest of the candle bombs, Iron Maid goes around checking the manager's office and the bathrooms. They're all still out cold, he reports. I think it will be hours before they wake up. Great, because when the flame gets down to the end of the wick, boom, Rancourt replies. He checks his watch. This should give us another half an hour. Iron Maid, go find some boards for the back doors you tore down. Once we're out, we need to put the boards up quickly so nobody escapes. We have to leave the scene before they start to go off. Once the rest of the bombs are lit, covered, and scattered, Rancourt goes into the janitorial supply room for a hammer and nails. Just in time, Iron Maid comes back with some wooden boards, 20 by 16. Rancourt is impressed by the sizes. Perfect! The Kensington brothers leave out the back, Iron Maid lifting lifting up and boarding the doors. Meanwhile, in the club, Nightvisor, Jennifer, Amanda, Liz, Anthony, Derek, and Celine are all dancing in a group, a Latin song, followed by a popular club tune. The waiting staff has picked up all the bombs and, thinking they're actual candles, put them all on the tables. The candles are rather warm, but they don't make the tables hot. After dancing, Jennifer goes back to her table to light the candle. The wick almost burns to the end. She picks up the candle, mesmerized by its spear shape and bumpy texture. "This is so cool," she says to Nightvisor. "Darling, we simply must look into one of these for our future home." Suddenly, the bomb explodes in her hands, blowing them off at the wrist and creating flames that set her clothes on fire. Everyone who notices the blast screams in panic, and a horrified Nightvisor runs to get the fire extinguisher. As he leaves, he hears more explosions on random tables and quickly realizes what they are. "Bombs!" he yells. "Everybody clear out of here!" The explosions set all the tables on fire, the tablecloths quickly engulfing in flames. It isn't long before the entire nightclub is set on fire, burning the streamers and the murals. Nightvisor is carrying the unconscious and burning Jennifer, while Leander and Highclere take Master Abraham and Mr. and Mrs. Paxton as everyone heads to the emergency exits. But the doors will not open. They have been sealed shut. As they make their way to the restaurant, they find the back doors are boarded up. Nightvisor tries to push them open, but he can't. They head to the restaurant to see more of the same bombs on the floor. "Oh no," Nightvisor says lowly. Highclere quickly notices an air conditioning vent on the same wall as the back doors. He runs to it and climbs up. You guys, he calls. We can escape through here." He uses his strength to tear the vent away, the bolts ripping from the walls. Suddenly, the bombs in the restaurant explode, causing Highclere to fall with the vent in hand, and survivors of the nightclub fire to be thrown into mere panic as the restaurant also catches fire. Highclere gets back up and calls for everyone to come to the hole in the wall. He is able to give Leander, Nightvisor, and Master Abraham all boosts. He is also able to throw people up high enough to grab the bottom of the hole and climb through. He manages to get the Maitland and Paxton families all out. It takes time for some to climb through before he starts to wonder if he can save everyone. Then he has an idea. "Somebody grab my shoulders, and then everybody grab the shoulders of the person behind you. We'll form a chain and climb up." Miss Massey grabs onto Highclere's shoulders and calls, "Everyone form a chain and don't let go." When Highclere is sure everyone is ready, he starts to climb up the wall and through the heat vent. The vent is only large enough for people to crawl through one behind the other. It takes about 2 minutes of crawling before he finds the exterior of the building. He crawls out and falls, landing on his feet. Firefighters and paramedics are already there to take part in the rescue. Leander, Highclere, and Nightvisor volunteer themselves and help hold the trampoline for survivors to land on. Miss Massey and other people in the chain crawl out as Nightvisor has and bounces. Let me start that sentence again. Miss Massey and other people in the chain crawl out as Nightvisor has and bounce to their safety. But only 40 people make it out that way. Highclere notices that the boarded door has been gutted down, likely with an axe. Firefighters and paramedics are getting more people out. The last one to escape from the vent goes up to him, accompanied by a firefighter, and says, I had a woman behind me who was too large to fit through the vent and got stuck. The man behind her, his hands got so sweaty he lost his grip and sent the rest falling down. This firefighter here told me he sent one of his men to axe the doors down to get the rest of the attendants. He is about to respond when he hears Nightvisor screaming Jennifer's name, then crying. He turns to see him sobbing in Master Abraham's arms. Amanda Maitland is also crying along with her parents. He runs up to Nightvisor and asks him, Nightvisor! Buddy, what happened? Nightbiter is too upset to speak, so Master Abraham speaks for him. Jennifer is gone, he says. She was killed instantly when the bomb went off. Shortly afterwards, another survivor, a young woman, approaches Nightbiter. Excuse me, but are you the one they call Nightbiter? He nods sadly, but doesn't say anything. I'm a good friend of Colleen Frankel's, she says. I chatted with her as she passed by me at dinner. Nightbiter pauses, then, how is she? The young woman is fighting to keep from getting emotional, but manages to say, she's gone. She was trapped in the restaurant as it was burning. She suffered severe burns and never made it out. Nightbiter feels sick now. Sick and sad, angry, all different emotions at once. Leander is even angrier and looks up at the damage. The walls are still standing, but the roof is likely damaged. Nobody in the back lane can tell. All right, he says. What I want to know is who did this. And it's actually during Nightbiter's mourning period that Jordan, makes her first move, thinking that her love for him can help him get past Jennifer. Nightbiter's relationship with Jordan is about as stormy as Rhett Butler's relationship is with Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind. Without giving away too much, Jordan becomes more and more involved with cystic fibrosis charity work and doesn't pay very much attention to her boyfriend. She's already proved herself to him, so now he feels that he can't fight and save the city without Jordan's love. But, just like with Natalie MacDonnell, earlier in the book and throughout, this love is unrequited, and although Nightbiter works hard to save Crystal Isle from an impending threat, he still feels insecure in this relationship. Unfortunately, this is one of the many things that causes the breakdown of the relationship in the following action. In my second book, Lovers in a Dangerous Time, as I said, I worked a pro football subplot from a mere connection. In the first place, this book is inspired by and loosely based upon Shakespeare's play Romeo and Juliet. The main plotline here is that King Leader and the Kensingtons want to rid Crystal Isle of the superhuman Marshall brothers, so they gather up all the youth gangs in the city, group them up properly, disguise them, and train them as the brothers, and have them wreak havoc on the city. Not to mention the fact that there's a crime show host who is blaming the brothers for all the crimes that make the news. Everyone outside the closest allies, I should say, believes the host, and the new mayor of the city wants them brought to justice, and the brothers soon lose their relationship as good guys. Meanwhile, Nightbiter, in his quest to find true love to make him secure enough to fight, falls passionately in love with the mayor's daughter, Shailene Goldsmith. Now, to the football subplot. As you may know, in Romeo and Juliet, Paris was the man that Juliet was originally supposed to be married to, fixed up by her father as was custom in Shakespeare's time. Here, I created two football teams in Crystal Isle, the Warriors and the Tsunami, and two Paris characters, one playing for each team as quarterback. These quarterbacks, Neil and Scott Jameson, are the son and nephew of the aforementioned TV host who is also friends with Shailene's father. So it's pretty fitting that they would set her up with Neil and Scott and have her choose between the two. There's just one small problem. Shailene doesn't follow football or sports in general, and she's not very keen on being the wife of a pro football player. However, Shailene's family lets her know of their disapproval of her and Nightbiter together, and they push the cousins, both of whom are very interested in her, onto Shailene to keep her and Nightbiter apart. The ironic thing is, Shailene's experiences with Neil and Scott and their respective teams make her want Nightbiter even more. And unlike Neil and Shailene, and Scott and Shailene, the romance and passion between Nightbiter and Shailene just oozes out in the novel. I've already put this novel in completed format, but the connection begins in chapter 2 when the future mayor, Lawrence Goldsmith, gets together with Neil's parents to plan matches between her and their son and nephew. And picks up in chapter 4 when Shailene actually meets Neil and Scott in a bar and grill restaurant called Tribal Fire. Another example occurs in chapter 18, where Shailene is in a private suite in the football stadium with the owner of the Tsunami, who is Scott's father, and she's watching a Tsunami game. And I'll read these back to back to back. In the meantime, Fred and Gloria Jameson look at the pictures of their sons, both of whom play pro football in Crystal Isle, looking at their football cards. They look at the photographs of Neil Jameson, their rookie nephew, nodding and smiling at each other. After an hour, they turn to Counselor and Mrs. Goldsmith. "Now, Counselor," Fred begins, "I must ask if your lovely daughter Shailene is currently seeing anyone." "Ah, the reason why you're here," Counselor Goldsmith replies. "Actually, she isn't, and she spent the past year trying to deal with one of the Kensington brothers who's been after her for heaven knows how long. His name is Iron Maid, and believe me when I say that he is not someone I want for Shailene." He then talks about the time following the fire at the Spanish-ized restaurant and nightclub, when the family caught Iron Maid standing and waiting outside Shailene's apartment door, among many other previous incidents where he had to warn the family about stalking her, sometimes even threatening them with prison. Fred and Gloria grin, and Charles and Claire also look interested. "Well, her luck is about to change," Fred says. "All of our pro football sons, Neil, Patrick, and Scott, are single. Patrick's just recovering from his ex-fiancée calling off their engagement last Christmas." Gloria suddenly looks concerned. "Fred," she calls, "Patrick is only a year and a half away from turning 30. She looks at Counselor and Mrs. Goldsmith. "And how old is Shailene?" "She's 22 and recently graduated from university, working on her career," Counselor Goldsmith says. He looks at both brothers. "I would think that Patrick is at least 5 years too old for her. I would agree with her dating either Neil or Scott, except I think she should be married to a police officer. I have well-established connections with police." "Well, Neil turned 24 this past April," Charles says, "and Trace is close to 2 years older than him. He's a rookie cop, but he has a great salary. Really, Lawrence, I wouldn't get so hung up about age difference. I know couples who have at least a 10-year age difference and they've been happily married for 20 years. You know Richard McDonnell, one of Crystal Isle's most famous businessmen? He and his wife want their daughter's husbands to be at least 5 years older than them. And we all know when families make matches out of both politics and money, it almost always ends in disaster for the couple," Counselor Goldsmith tells them. "Most of the time they find they don't love each other, and if the families won't let them leave, it's just a marriage of convenience. No, I want my daughter to be better than that. It should be either one or the other, but the young man must work to prove his love for her, to make her want to spend the rest of her life with him. He must come up with a plan to get on the same page as her, be compatible, and keep every promise he makes to her. I'd love it if Shailene married for political reasons, so I can be proud both as a father and a career politician. But not if Shailene is so unhappy that she wants an early divorce." "And Shailene's never been interested in professional football," Mrs. Goldsmith adds. "In fact, she doesn't follow sports in general, never mind the major leagues. She simply wouldn't be happy as a football wife." "At least tell her about her boys and ask if she would be interested," Gloria says. "Patrick and Scott may play a brutish sport that she'd deem barbaric, but I can guarantee you they are charming and classy young men off the field, and who wouldn't want to marry a quarterback?" Dutifully, Mrs. Goldsmith heads up to the computer room. She finds it open just a crack, so she pushes it open wide enough to fit her head through. Mom, can this wait a bit? Shailene requests. I'm just looking for some pictures of seasonal scenes for a series of air fresheners. That will take all weekend, and I have something more important for you, Mrs. Goldsmith says. She closes the door for privacy and stands her up. Now, Shailene, I know that you have never been with anyone in high school and university, but I think now is the time to start considering it. Mom, I haven't dipped my toes into the career world, Shailene says. You knew I wanted to be financially independent before I settled down. And you've shown that you are, Mrs. Goldsmith replies. You've shown that you can keep an apartment all through university, you've worked since your high school years, and you can make your own decisions about your life and love. I think you're ready, and the way you've come, any good young man would be eager to take your hand. She escorts her into the living room. When Shailene is there, she sees both Jameson brothers and their wives staring at her, looking happily eager. Counselor Goldsmith rises and says, Shailene, I'm so happy that you could join us. He shows her Charles and Claire, then Fred and Gloria. You know Mr. and Mrs. Jameson, especially Mr. Jameson from his Saturday night show. I'd like to introduce you to his brother and sister-in-law, Fred and Gloria Jameson. Fred rises and places his hand softly on Shailene's right shoulder. He tells about himself and his football team and says, Shailene Goldsmith, now I know you don't usually follow football or care for the sport, but both my brother and I have one son in your age group who plays on both Crystal Isle football teams. I tell my family and relatives about you and yours all the time, and even showed Scott your picture. He presents a recent football card featuring Scott Jameson in his Warriors uniform, muscular arms that leans. He presents a recent football card featuring Scott Jameson in his Warriors uniform, muscular arms in that lean sort of way, not like a bodybuilder, but definitely arms that can throw a football 100 yards. He isn't wearing a helmet in his picture. His hair is copper-colored like maple syrup. She can't make out his eye color, but the masculine Romanesque facial features do make him look attractive. She looks up at Scott's parents. Both Jameson brothers have dark brown hair that is half gray, she notices. Gloria's hair is also copper-colored, but Shailene suspects she was once a blonde and that she dyed it to match her son's. She looks at Charles and Claire Jameson. She knows that Neil went to the University of Crystal Isle, not the University of the Tropics, and graduated a year before she did. Still, she remembers seeing him at the university games when the Crystal Isle team faced off against the Tropics team. There were games that all her girlfriends who had boyfriends these were games that all her girlfriends who had boyfriends would take her to, and she would fake interest to please them. Still, she remembers Neil from her middle school and high school years, how he was always a foot taller than her, hair the color of milk chocolate, and blue-green eyes, the color of sea vegetation. She always considered him a big brother type, but not somebody she'd actually have a romantic relationship with. Charles walks up to her and says, Shailene, my dear, I've known your father for more than 20 years. Neil has always wanted you, and now that he has an official contract with a spare salary, he feels he can take care of you like he always wanted to do. He looks uneasily at his wife. Of course, Neil was always the type to value his mother's word over mine. Counselor Goldsmith adds, Shailene, I've always dreamed that my future son-in-law would be a police officer like your brothers. But after speaking with Mr. Jameson, I feel that if you were to date either his son or nephew, it would strengthen our friendship. So tell me, would you be willing to give either of them a chance? Shailene thinks about it, not really knowing what life as a pro football wife would be like. She thinks a woman would have to be really famous. She thinks a woman would have to be a really famous model, actress, or singer in order to get anything out of it. Oh, all right, she finally says. I'll give them both a chance. But I want a man who can treat me like a princess off the field and not let the gifts of ego of football go to his head. The last thing I want to do is call Danny or Greg and tell them to deal with him because of an addiction or rage problem. She excuses herself to her bedroom, walks to her vanity, and stares at herself in the mirror. She touches her hair, the color of dark chocolate, flowing halfway down her back. She leans in closer to look at the light blue color of her eyes. She touches her face. Her skin is clean as pure water, as smooth as regular milk. She thinks of the actresses, the models, the performers who have successful celebrity marriages to professional athletes. She has the beauty to make it in show business, but not the talent. She wonders how she can make her marriage to an athlete work, how she can make her love believable so people will notice and respect her, maybe even love her. She wonders if and how she should improve herself so this is not just a marriage of convenience. When they arrive at Trouble Fire, Greg and Shailene see that the bar floor is still damaged. The water has been cleaned up and the tables and chairs have been arranged properly, but the floors need to be replaced, and the windows still have covered up holes in them. The Jameson interview is in the lounge upstairs. They see almost every table occupied, but see 2 seats available at the front. At the round interview table is a bald man with an athletic figure wearing a white polo with green stripes, looking over his notes. Greg points out to him as Jason Warrington. Seconds later, Greg points him out as Jason Warrington, I should say. Seconds later, a tall, Latin-looking man in a purple button-down with a thin mustache sits down next to him. Shailene guesses it's Brad Santana, but she's not interested in their pro sports careers. She sees nearly everyone has a drink in front of them, eating desserts and sharing chicken wings. 5 minutes before the interview, she sees Neil and Scott Jameson come in. She immediately distracts herself with a dessert menu so Neil doesn't notice her. Shailene, this thing with the Jamesons is going to be big news in Crystal Isle, Greg reminds her. You really should pay attention. And have Neil ask me out prematurely, she replies. No, thank you, Greg. Greg notices the cousins already sitting at the round table. Well, Neil and Scott have their backs turned to us, so it's safe to look up. No, he just might turn around. No. Then Shailene notices something good and taps her brother's shoulder. Want to share a chocolate mousse pie with me? Looks tempting. I'll pay for it if you let me promote you during Q&A. When they're on the air, and after Santana and Warrington introduce themselves, Warrington announces, it is shaping up to be one of the biggest games in the preseason when 2 hometown teams face off against each other. We call this the Crystal Isle Civil War. Everyone laughs, and Shailene can see the grin he's wearing. He will say something that's great public relations for local sports. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me again. But what makes this game, maybe even the season, special is that the generals of both teams are related to each other, Warrington continues. In fact, they're cousins. And it's no secret that the quarterback of one of the teams is the son of the owner of the other team. Welcome Neil Jameson of the Tsunami and Scott Jameson of the Warriors. Everyone except Shailene applauds. He throws the first question to Neil. So, Neil Jameson, not only are you drafted straight from university, but according to my notes, you are the son of crime show host Charles Jameson, and he expected you and your younger brother, who still plays college ball, to become cops. What made you decide to play football? Neil smiles and answers, my mom's influence. When my older brother Trace joined the Crystal Isle police force, I remember Mom telling Dad at his graduation, 1 is enough. Knowing that we were all the active, athletic types, she encouraged Kevin and me to pick a sport and make that our career. He mentioned some things about his father's friendship with Counselor Goldsmith, and Shailene groaned silently. He just may bring up the election. But he doesn't, as Greg suddenly tells her. What was it like for you two growing up? Santana asks. Were you close in any way? And did you always compete with each other? Oh, as children, all us Jameson boys would get together every weekend. Almost every Saturday, Scott answers. This was long before Uncle Charles started working on Paradise Lost, but whenever our father's work kept them away, we'd go with our mothers. We'd get together in my parents' big backyard, or, if our moms really wanted us out of the house, we'd walk a long way to a playing field to some park, and Trace, Neil, and Kevin would square off against Pat and me in endless games of touch football. Depending on whose house we were at, we'd gather up as many of our friends as we could so we could form teams. Scott and I were pretty competitive against each other, Neil adds. It was cousins versus cousins, as that was the way Patrick liked it. What was it like for you going to school? Warrington asks. Did you attend the same school? Or did you also find yourselves rivals during your middle and high school years too? Neil and I did play on teams that brutally rivaled each other, but our parents insisted that we keep the rivalry on the high school field, Scott laughs. But really, Neil is actually like the little brother I always wanted, since he's about a couple of years younger than I am. So every competition we had, we kept it friendly. It wouldn't last too long in high school, as Neil was a sophomore when I was a senior. Shailene finds this boring, and looks up at the screens during the interview. A Major League Baseball game is on the screen directly above her. She decides it's a less violent sport, so she has something to distract herself. Her chocolate mousse pie is another distraction. She delights in the chocolatey goodness, the whipped topping, the chocolate drizzle of the syrup. She loses herself in a beautiful romantic fantasy, quietly making love to a hero as she eats. When she finishes, she quickly helps herself to another slice. She doesn't see if Greg notices her. She thinks he is focused on the interview and the Jameson cousins. But Greg is eager to get to his proposal, wanting to announce this on air. So he has to wait until the show comes back from commercial break. Minutes later, when they're back on the air, Santana says, Okay, I'm sure some of us at the Tribal Fire Sports Bar and Grill have some questions for Neil and Scott. So let's throw it out to the audience. Greg shoots his hand up and smiles earnestly at both cousins. Well, to begin with, he says, I am the son of Councillor Lawrence Goldsmith, who was put in the bid to run for mayor. And as Neil established, his father and mine are very good friends. Neil turns and smiles at Greg, then notices Shailene with him and becomes smitten. Her eyes are still fixed on the television. Last weekend, both Neil and Scott's parents visited my parents after dinner, and it was proposed that both these gentlemen be fixed up to date my younger sister. Shailene suddenly turns to Greg, horrified. She doesn't notice Neil and Scott, but looks around the crowd, all of them staring at her, wondering if she'll go for it. She glares at her brother, now understanding why he brought her here. Mr. Goldsmith, I don't think this is very relevant here, and you're embarrassing your sister, Warrington says. Nonsense! I think this would be great public relations, not only for the city of Crystal Isle, but also for the Warriors and the tsunami, Greg insists. A crew member moves the microphone closer to Shailene, and she is unnerved to see it obstructing the television. She looks over at Neil and Scott, who are now staring at how beautiful she looks. Neil looks smitten with her, as if he wants another chance. Ah, I can see that Neil and Scott are interested, Greg continues, and seeing that both the city's police and fire departments are endorsing my father in his campaign, I'm confident that he will be our city's next mayor. If one of our hometown's greatest quarterbacks is married to the mayor's daughter, not only will this set up a wave of publicity, but my sister will be one half of Crystal Isle royalty. Now then, stand up, Shailene, and introduce yourself. Shailene rises slowly, looking as if she wants to kill him in front of everyone, and that last remark being fresh in her mind. Thank you, Michael Henchard, she says through gritted teeth. Why don't you just put me up for sale to all the men here, not just the Jamesons? Santana looks at Neil, then back at Shailene. Neil, does Miss Goldsmith look familiar to you? I knew her when she was in high school, Neil says. We both went to Hacienda Tribe High School. All the guys wanted to date her, even the science geeks. Yeah, but I was never interested in him, Shailene says. I never dated the high school athletes because I was afraid they'd all go professional. Only those who were serious about becoming police officers, like my father originally wanted for me. And you never wanted to date a pro athlete because, Santana prompts. Because I never wanted to be famous, Shailene answers. If there's one thing that's to be said about me, it's that I'm not like other daughters of career politicians. All of them dream of becoming famous actresses, singers, and models. So do those who attach themselves to pro athletes, especially quarterbacks and hockey captains. Or they're working on being famous. Me? I just want the simple kind of life when I marry. Wife, mother, maybe even working mother. It's the main reason why I never became a sorority sister, nor was I interested in cheerleading. Neil reaches out to take her hand. Shailene, this is more than just marriage to a pro athlete, he says. If you and I were to marry one day, then it would solidify a friendship that our fathers held when we were children, bring them closer together and make them into family. Friends can become family if it's in their destiny. It's as if we were promised to each other long ago, and I promise I will not change you into something you don't want to be. Scott promises too. She looks over at Scott to see him nodding sincerely. He also reaches his hand out to her, hoping she will take it. She then remembers the promise she made to her parents and what she said to Fred Jameson, that she would give both these young men a chance. Oh, all right. Just so long as you treat me like a lady and act like a gentleman. The cousins take turns in kissing her hand. Neil says to her, My darling, you will not be disappointed. We may share our love for football, but we promise that our love for you will be just as strong. Shailene still feels skeptical, but the applause of everyone around her tells her that everyone approves. She tries to smile, wondering what marriage to a quarterback will be like. She also wonders if she will be able to keep a low profile as a result of it. She looks around at the crowd, then back to Neil and Scott, thinking, Fame can't possibly hurt me, can it? Neil and Shailene arrive together at the Tampapawa Island Field on game day. When they arrive, he gives her to Fred Jameson, who takes her to his executive suite at the stadium. She walks to the wall-side window, fascinated by the view. She is facing east and can see the whole side of the city from here, past all the stands and lights. Down below, she can see almost the whole field, including the part of the farther goal line. Spectacular, she says. I'm almost breathless. I'll bet this would cost about $7,000 to rent. No, this suite is strictly closed to the public, Fred Jameson says. This is exclusively for staff unless I have special guests. And in your case, guests under special circumstances. So, this is where you talk business during game time, Shailene assumes. Just as Jameson is about to answer, in walk two middle-aged men, both looking like brothers with the same shade of blonde hair. Shailene guesses early to mid-50s. The older-looking man is wearing a green polo shirt with the team logo and khaki slacks, while the younger-looking one is wearing a blue shirt with a white tie and gray slacks. Jameson is jovial as he welcomes them. Gentlemen, you arrived right on schedule, he says. He gestures towards Shailene. I'm sure you know about Mayor Lawrence Goldsmith. This is his daughter, Shailene. My nephew's been taking care of her, been keeping her for the entire weekend. And this is part of my team who keeps the operations running, he says to Shailene. He passes the head of the man in green. This is Peter Mickelson, my general manager. Then the man in blue. And this is Doug Kilbride, director of player personnel. Charmed, Shailene says. Kilbright smiles and offers to sit Shailene down in one of the 3 leather chairs. He puts her in the middle chair, then looks back at the bar behind him. Can I fix you a drink, he offers. Not right now, Shailene says. Maybe when the game starts. She sits for 20 minutes as Jameson talks business plans and strategies for the week ahead with his front office staff. She closes her eyes and imagines herself alone with Nightvisor on the 50-yard line, standing on the Tsunami logo, holding each other in her arms, a gentle breeze blowing in her hair. The chairs are certainly making her comfortable. Suddenly, she is drawn out of her fantasy by Kilbright's voice repeating her name. Shailene, he almost shouts, and he looks over at him. It's an honor to have the mayor's daughter here with us as the Tsunami plays the bullseyes, he says. He turns to his boss. Mr. Jameson, you should have invited her father here to be sitting with us. Perhaps instead of the usual football talk, we'd spend the whole game discussing political affairs in Crystal Isle. And what to do about this crazy crime wave with all these infectious gangs, Mickelson adds. Shailene smiles at Mickelson. So he thinks the superhuman Marshall brothers are innocent after all, she thinks, but doesn't really ask him that. She walks to the window to see the players on the field. She sees Neil practicing passing with his teammates, just like he did the day before. After about 20 minutes, he practices throwing, trying to throw as far as possible. She tries to focus on his throws and the camera filming the game on television, showing him in action. She wishes she could open the window and blow him a kiss, not out of love, but good luck. She looks back at Jameson, wondering if he'll expect her to watch Neil the entire game, only making him sit down when he's off the field. But Jameson is in a corner of the suite talking business with Mickelson and Kilbride. She knows better than to interrupt him with such a frivolous question. She knows she can't stand in high heels for long periods at a time, but her legs are as skinny as the models. Games like this usually take 3 hours, and it would be torturous for her. She sits back down in her chair and says to herself, I'll get up if Mr. Jameson brings me to the window. She thinks that if she can fall asleep, she can dream about Nightvisor, but a part of her tells her that she can't. She turns to Kilbride and asks for an iced tea. She adds, maybe I'll have a diet soda at the start of the game. He brings it to her, and while she sips, Jameson comes and obstructs her view. She doesn't mind this, but she tries not to think of being bored. Jameson keeps talking to his head office staff, but she doesn't listen. She sighs silently and speaks to herself again. I sure wish Daddy let me talk to Mom that night. I would have asked her to pack some magazines for me. She looks around the room to see a large screen television on the southern wall. She guesses it's meant to show the game for those who want to stay sitting. She wonders if maybe it can show a romantic comedy movie until game time. She looks back at Jameson's band, giving opinions and ideas. The meeting is still going on. She'd get into trouble if she were to do that. Jameson turns around and notices Shailene wondering what to do. Why, Shailene, he says, if you want, I can get our weekend receptionist to fetch you some magazines for the time being. The game won't start for an hour. That'd be great, she says. No sports or anything manly, though. Jameson calls for Shailene's request. And 10 minutes later, she receives 3 past issues of the same women's magazine, and a copy of a literary magazine. She reads the literary magazine first, finding all the short stories interesting, but skipping the writer interviews. She is halfway through the first women's magazine when Jameson announces that the game is starting. He takes her hand and walks her to the window just as the kickoff is handling. He has her focusing on Neil as another play starts up, and he successfully snaps the ball and passes it to another player before being tackled. This player, as she tries to identify him, runs in the opposite direction down the field, but is tackled before he reaches the goal line. Shailene does a calm face move. She doesn't know why, but she thinks it's because Jameson is still near her, and he's just as disappointed. She looks at the player again. Someone on the defensive line named Thackeray. She tries to think if he was at the charity event last night. Why is it that I can't tell who any other player is other than Neil with their helmets? She wonders. Seriously, but what for the names on the backs of their jerseys, I wouldn't be able to tell who was who. You should really follow the game and the team more, Shailene, Jameson advises. When the first quarter is halfway through, Kilbride begins to wonder how long Shailene's been standing there. He thinks maybe it's time to sit her down, thinking she may be tired. I think it may be time for that diet soda now, he says. He goes to a small fridge, the same one where he fetched the iced tea, and gives her a Diet Pepsi. Shailene thanks him and sits down promptly. She can only see part of the field out of the window now, mostly spectators in the stands. She looks at the television now. She wonders if she can have her chair moved in that direction and someone turn it on for her. Maybe she can watch the game with some comfort. She decides the only thing she can enjoy about this game is watching Neil throw the ball. She knows she'd be bored watching the team interact during commercial breaks. If only they would let her hear sound bites during the game. Hearing Neil communicate and give instructions would also be interesting. She looks over at Jameson, then Mickelson and Kilbride. She is wondering what to tell them without offending them or sounding unappreciative. Very early in the second quarter, Jameson stands her up and brings her to the window again. She looks down at the field just in time to see Neil throw the ball, though she doesn't really see who catches it. But this player is immediately tackled within 5 seconds. She still focuses on Neil, but not the scoreboard. Do you know what the score is? She asks Jameson. I'm afraid that if I take my eyes off Neil for even a nanosecond, he'll be after me to stay focused on the boyfriend. Jameson laughs. Well, while you were sitting there hoping to watch the game on screen, he says, as if he can tell what her intentions were, the Tsunami scored one touchdown and a field goal. We're ahead 10-6. She stays standing until she sees Neil go off the field and be replaced by Manu Himori, at the quarterback position. Then she sits back down and drinks the last of her soda. But as she's getting comfortable, Jameson has a reminder for her. Stand at the window with me when the cameras get a shot at this suite. I think everyone at home will be interested in seeing the mayor's daughter watching the game from the stadium's most luxurious area. Really, Shailene, I feel really privileged if I were you. Shailene looks down at her feet, wondering how much more standing she can do in her heels, wondering how long her legs can hold her up. Then maybe I should have packed an emergency pair of flats, she comments. Perhaps if I did, I'd be dancing all around in here. And those are the ratings! I am also planning to weave the cystic fibrosis and fundraising theme into my third book entitled Every Breath You Take, which I'm well into. I'm just started chapter 24 as of this taping. I'm also planning a general sports subplot into my fourth book. The working title is Diamond Sun. Now think about it. The glory of love, lovers in a dangerous time, every breath you take, Diamond Sun. Do you notice a theme with the titles that I'm assigning? Oh, I also have a cystic fibrosis subplot idea for my fifth book, but I refuse to give any spoilers or any plot elements. Nevertheless, I am hoping the Boomer Esiason Foundation will take all 5 books in the saga. I also wish to write a sports-themed novel for teen readers as well, and I have a couple of ideas. Now, Here's the question of the hour, I'm sure. How can you write a novel for fundraising purposes? It can be easy if you can believe you can pull it off, but it takes major steps. Pick a cause you care about the most. Maybe it's a cause that's close to your heart, or somebody you love is affected by it, and you think they need a cure. Again, is it some sort of a cancer? Or maybe it's diabetes, or HIV and AIDS? Is it to empower girls and women and give them strength and hope? Would you like to improve the livelihoods of people in war-torn countries? Would you like to see cures for childhood diseases like cystic fibrosis because you care a lot about families and you want to see them happier and healthier? Again, it has to be a cause you care about. Go to the website, read the founder's story, maybe even read some testimonies about how people's lives were changed due to the work. Does it move you to get involved in the cause? And what else has attracted you to the charity that you want to target? Maybe there are celebrities known for their humanitarianism, whom you admire and you want to support the same causes they support? An example closer to home. Local Winnipeg Chanteau's Chantal Krabiazik and her husband, Our Lady Peace frontman Ray Maida, both tend to support War Child Canada. So people who are huge fans of their music and their giving back skills may wish to flock their own talents there. How many social events does the Foundation do every year, including a fundraising gala? How many sporting events do they do each year? I remember the Boomer Esiason Foundation also held golf tournaments in other parts of the United States and fishing tournaments in Costa Rica, as well as a football game featuring high school players, if I remember correctly. What are they selling in their online store? These are just mere examples. There have been books that were published as charitable projects. As one example, Samantha Nutt of War Child Canada published a book called Damned Nations: Greed, Guns, Armies, and Aid, where all the proceeds go to support War Child's programming. But they're mostly coffee table books and non-fiction on social commentary, no doubt. For works of fiction, you should maybe pitch this idea in writing. Tell them what attracted you to their cause and why you want to support them. Then tell about the book that you're planning to write. If they like your idea, send them your resume along with a book outline. Do not, and I repeat, do not make an impromptu appearance at the organization and just tell them, oh, well, I want to get involved in your fundraising by writing a novel. If the organization has never heard of such an idea, or this is not something they do, you will not be taken seriously. As in, and who are you again? They'll especially say this if they've never heard of you. You may run a bigger risk of being laughed out the door, which is 10 times more embarrassing. If you work for the organization itself, that's even better. You can sit down with your executive director, pitch your idea for your novel to write as a fundraising project, and you can set up a meeting to pitch your novel and present your outline. You'll be taken more seriously if they see this in your resume. It can be as little as a few short stories or poems in a magazine, or a couple of previous novels or children's book, or even if you self-published a novel like I did. You might want to include a few copies of your previous works in your package. If they really like your writing and they think you're really talented and think, yes, I think this writer can contribute his talents to our cause, I'm sure they'll be more than happy to jump on board and give you an invitation. You may not wish to be a total advocate for your chosen cause, and you may have other things you've written about that are still unpublished. but chances are they may not agree to anything outside their cause. With children's charities and female empowerment, anything may go as far as children's books and women's fiction are concerned. Well, so long as you have a strong female protagonist with the latter. With me, I'm a Canadian writer just trying to establish successfully good terms with a group of Americans, which is the basis of Holly Springwood. But it wasn't really what they were looking for. However, the idea of Canadian-American relations and anti-Americanism in society would make for a good novel to study in high school English class. So I submitted it to an educational nonprofit in Montreal called EduConnection, and which still hasn't contacted me back. So I'm kind of assuming they're not interested. I hope I can find another organization for it. Another educational organization. The best thing, though, is that your novel fundraising project can be for any genre. Maybe you can write a novel for adults about a mother who was left single and her child was diagnosed with a severe disability, and she struggles to find love with someone who will understand the child's limitations. SMD and other disability charities will love that. To target the Diabetes Foundation, make sure the protagonist is living with the condition. Or maybe the main family is affected by diabetes outright. If you want to target breast cancer, maybe you can write a novel for women readers about a group of women who rally around a friend as she fights breast cancer. Or a romance novel can have a group of tough guys testing their compassion as their wives and girlfriends battle the disease. Revisiting War Child Canada. They'll definitely be interested in stories themed around war, even if many of the scenes take place in the home front, which is what I would have to do. But especially if you set your novel in a war-torn country. Again, there are examples. If you don't know enough about the cause to produce a whole novel, or in the case of The Glory of Love, you can't make the cause the main plot because of the main idea, I highly recommend you go for the next best thing and make it a subplot. Maybe you're writing about a group of girls on vacation, and one of the supporting characters is constantly worrying about her mother and sister who are battling cancer, constantly talking about them and checking up on them. Here, she pays more attention to her email or is forever texting on her phone, and she annoys everyone by staying on Facebook and other social media outlets when she should be enjoying herself. Targeting your writing to a specific cause is more than just mentioning it here and there. You need to have some scenes that show the cause to help garner more interest from them. Some charities use their money wisely for research and awareness purposes, and that's a great thing. But there are others in which only a small percentage goes to the cause, and a large quantity of the money goes to administrative costs, or is used as a big pay cut for the executive director. That's pretty scandalous. It's best to avoid these charities in the latter category to make sure that your efforts aren't being taken in vain. Research the organization on directory sites such as GuideStar.org and GreatNonprofits.org. Read the organizational reports to see how much of the money is being used for the cause. What are people saying in the online reviews and testimonies? Fortunately, when I read their organization report in the Boomer Esiason on GuideStar.com, I learned that the Boomer Esiason Foundation gives back a little over 90% of the donations received, and they raised more than $100 million to date. This giving back amount impressed me very much, and it cemented the assurance that I was doing the right thing by choosing the Boomer Esiason Foundation. When you've completed your novel and book proposal and it's ready to go to the publisher, be sure to mention in your cover letter that this is a fundraising project, so X amount of book sales should go to the charity you're representing. That is, the charity itself decides not to act as an agent outright. This can be either in dollar amount or sales percentages. This is only if the charity is not representing you, the publisher, and again, acting as their agent. Keep in mind that editors and publishers read thousands of pages of manuscripts per week, so this may slip their minds. If the book is accepted and they want to see more, you may give them a friendly reminder when you send out the remainder of your book. You may also wish to send the contract information of the nonprofit organization to the publisher. This includes the person who is representing you, the mailing address of the organization, their phone number, and the individual's extension, even their email. This will allow the publisher to speak to the organization on your behalf if they wish. You should keep all this information in your possession so you'll be ready to give it to them if they request it, and so you can keep in touch with the organization whenever you need to. If you follow these steps, you'll be guaranteed that if and when your book is published, you'll be on great terms working for the cause, and this and other organizations will want to see more from you. And when your book is published, that portion of your book sales is going to a good cause, I know for sure that you'll feel satisfied. And you'll have a feeling of virtuous pride knowing that your project is resulting in a positive outcome, that affected persons and families are enjoying your writing, and that you're truly giving back to the community and society by using your talent.